I need you to all get out your phones. We're going to have a fun quiz just while the panellists come up, seeing what you understand about climate-smart agriculture facts. So, all got your phones out? As I mentioned earlier, don't forget to refresh the app. So, scroll down on the master menu down towards the bottom. There's a thing that says Refresh App. Thank you, Vita. And you should receive a notification from the conference app. And you press on the link that says, please join the live poll here. That should take you to the quiz. So, do I hit the first button and we go to the first question? Is everyone ready? No, not yet. So, one more minute. Okay. We're going to give you more time. Open that app. Please join the live poll here. Have people found that yet? Show of hands. If you found that, okay, we need a few more hands up yet. Yesterday I figured out we had about a 50% response rate in participating with the app. I'm sure there are still some Luddites here, but I wouldn't have thought it's 50%. Are we ready yet, Danush? Okay, I'm going to go to the first question. How much does agriculture, not including land use change, so just agriculture, contribute to global emissions? What proportion? So we want a percentage number here. And you've all got to answer that. I'm giving you 1 minute. There's the clock ticking down. And we'll go to the next question after the 1 minute. I hope that the panellists all get 100% for this, or we'll have to find some new panellists. How's everyone going? Feeling very confident. Okay. All right. Countdown to feeling quietly smug or feeling quite embarrassed. Here we go. How much do food systems contribute to global emissions? So the first question was about agriculture. The second question is about the food system as a whole. What proportion? So on my sheet here, it gives us the alternatives. So we're giving people, in the app, does it give you the multiple choice? Good. Okay, good. All right, so hopefully the 1 minute isn't giving people sufficient time to Google this on their phone and then answer. Okay, sprung. Yeah, I think we should have, we can go a bit quicker. Righto, we'll move on. Whoa, sorry. There are 570 million farms in the world. What proportion are less than 2 hectares? That's 5 acres for you old folks in the room. 570 million farms. How many are smallholders if you define it as less than 2 hectares? What percentage? Ready to move on? Righto. Quick game's a good game. Of the population of Europe, what proportion of people are overweight? No idea. And we'll keep going. In Latin America, what's the contribution to food production from smallholders to meet regional demand? Everyone on a roll now? You've really got it nailed. Anna Maria, if you get this wrong, we're in real strife. What proportion of the labour force in Asia is employed in agriculture? So how big an employer is agriculture in Asia? We'll keep going. The percentage of African countries that prioritise the agriculture and land use sector in their nationally determined contributions arising from the Paris Agreement. So when they said, here's how we're going to meet our targets, how many of them prioritised agriculture and land use in doing their NDCs? Finally, out of 50 African countries that have submitted NDCs, how many quantified agriculture-specific targets? So a number out of 50. Everyone answered all the questions? Okay, we'll move on. Here are the answers. 11%, the agricultural contribution to emissions, not counting land use change. 19 to 29%, the food system as a proportion of global emissions. Most farmers. Pardon? Oh, sorry, we need to wait for the scores. Shall I go back? Okay. You want me to keep going back?
The right answers are going to come here, and what people have answered are going to come.
Okay, righto. Okay. All right. So we're going to have the correct answer over here and what you guys said over here. Oops, sorry. Just one at a time. Yeah, you do it, Vito. Okay. One at a time now. So the answer was 11%. Dear, oh dear. Okay, so 1 in 5 of you got that correct. Food systems contribution to global emissions. The correct answer was 19 to 29%. 1 in 3 of you got that correct. Okay. Let's hope you got better as we went along. The proportion of farmers less than 2 hectares. The correct answer is vast majority of them, and 2 in 5 of you got that correct. That's very good. Getting a little bit better. Let's see if we can ever get to 50%. So, the percentage of overweight of the population in Europe is 55%. Yep, 30% of you got that right. The smallholder farmer contribution to food production in Latin America is 50%. Hey! We're finally in the black. That's good. Right, so half of us can get that right. The share of the labour force employed in agriculture in Asia is actually 40%. We are getting slightly better. Maybe you just had fat fingers on the early questions. The percentage of African countries prioritising agriculture in their NDCs was 85%. third of us got that right. And out of 50 African countries, only 8 have ag-specific targets in their NDCs. And 31% of us got that correct. Wow. How do you think we went? I mentioned earlier that we operate in a contested space, but we might want to reflect that if a whole bunch of technical specialists at a climate-smart agriculture conference, the 5th global conference on climate-smart agriculture, are struggling to do better than a random stab on multiple choice, we shouldn't be too dismissive when media get it wrong, when politicians get it wrong, when captains of industry get it wrong, or when the taxi driver asks you a stupid question. Their confusion is entirely understandable if a bunch of people with this level of knowledge and expertise is struggling with what are some pretty basic questions around all that. So, I'm going to introduce our panel and we're going to tease this out a little bit more. Starting from my left, Sithembile Mwamakamba, or Tembi, works at FANRAPAN. I'm sure many of you know what FANRAPAN is. She's a senior program manager on climate smart agriculture. She coordinates FANRAPAN's climate smart ag policy and research and advocacy. She's got a whole bunch of projects on irrigation, post-harvest. She's led studies on youth policies and initiatives across sub-Saharan Africa. Before this, from 2009 to 12, she led the Gates Foundation-funded Women Accessing Realigned Markets projects. I'm sure most of you know by now that one of the most crucial things you can ever do in designing a program is to get the acronym right. And that was the WARM project. So great work on the acronym. She represents FANRAPAN on the Farming First Steering Committee, and so it's great to have you with us, Tembi. Dr. Ana Maria Loboguerrero is the Head of Global Policy Research in CCAFS, based in Cali in Colombia. And I'm sure many of you know Ana Maria through her role in CCAFS. She's an ag economist from UCLA, but not all of you may know that before her current role, she's played a very important role in policy. So particularly for Colombia, she led the formulation of the Colombian climate change policy, the National Adaptation Plan, the National Development Plan and the research agenda. So she's made that transition from policy to research management, which is fantastic. And on my extreme left, Beau Damen is the Natural Resources Officer for Climate Change and Bioenergy for FAO's Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. So for the last 15 years or so, Beau's been working across South Asia, Southeast Asia and the Pacific and Southern Africa, and he's leading the FAO work program on low emissions agriculture in support of the UN FCCC agreement and the SDGs. He's previously been a senior policy analyst in the Australian Government's Department of Resources and Energy and a senior climate change specialist for the International Centre for Environmental Management in Hanoi. So we've got experts from Africa, Latin America and Asia, from science and from policy. So, drawing on the panel, I'm sorry, I've got to get my notes here. How do you guys think we went? Were you surprised that we didn't do much better than 30 to 40% on average? Yes, feel free. Who wants to start?
I think it reflects that we live in an age where facts don't matter anymore.
Yeah, I didn't want to go there, Beau, but Yes, we do seem to be in a post-fact world.
But to follow up on that, I think it's not a reason to lament. It's not something that I wouldn't take a negative out of this. I think what is clear is that the narrative is important. The story that you create around what you're doing, and I think that that's what everybody in this room does. And actually, part of the discussion yesterday, I'm just thinking of the hard talk yesterday as well. It's not so much whether we've hit the perfect solution. It's about creating a narrative that changes people's minds. And that's where CSA has had a lot of success.
Do you think it matters that we got some of this wrong? Can you give examples where us not knowing these basic facts has really held back transformation? Tembi?
Well, I think it matters. I think we, as the sort of experts in the space, need to get our stories straight, because we are dealing with farmers, we're dealing with policymakers, and we're dealing with development practitioners, people that need to actually implement things on the ground. And if we can't get the facts straight as the people that are supposed to be giving the knowledge, then we cause confusion where there are supposed to be implementable actions. So I think it does matter what we say, and also not just what we say and how we communicate it, because we are looking at different audiences, and so we need to know how to package the different facts that we have for the different audiences for their use.
Anna Maria, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that it matters. I mean, it is important. But something that I think was interesting was that we did better on the regional questions than on the global ones. So probably that's something that we are very focused on the work that we are doing in the regions where we work, which is good. I think that that's good. So we have it right. That we have people that are coming from these different regions that were part of the ones that were answering these right questions. And I think that says a lot about the importance of really understanding the context for coming up with solutions that can reach scale, and thinking about transformation. That's really important.
So if it's so context specific, what's the value in a global event like this one?
So let me reply to that. So I think that, again, specificity is really important. But I think that these spaces, they're really powerful in terms of bringing people together and learning from each other's experiences, regardless of the specificity. So just to give you a short example, climate services in Latin America. It all started through a South-South exchange between Senegal and Colombia, with very different conditions in terms of climate, in terms of institutions. But the Senegalese were able to inspire the Colombians to start thinking about an approach to put agroclimatic information in the hands of farmers so they could make better decisions. So to make a long story short, because of that South-South exchange, now more than 500,000 farmers across Latin America are using agroclimatic forecasts to respond to climate variability challenges. So I think that each time more, like from my work, I have seen the power of these kind of like South-South collaborations. They are a really effective vehicle to really drive change.
Very good. For the audience as a whole, what do you think these controversies or misunderstandings or a lack of clarity around basic facts, does it hold us back? What can we do to advance the discussion? Very happy to take suggestions, but I want you to think about that as this conference goes on, and come up to us in the break or whatever. But have a think about the extent to which we really need to have a common hymn sheet, or is it absolutely okay for people to have different understandings about different basic facts? What do the panel think? Starting with you this time, Beau. What have you heard from the audience, and what are your take-home messages about? Do you want to go?
Go. Yeah, I think the discussion around the context-specific nature of CSA is something that we've come across quite regularly in the work that we do on CSA at the regional level. It's a challenge when we're trying to communicate to policymakers about, ultimately they're most interested in how to implement CSA on the ground. And the common question we get is, okay, we understand the principle, we understand the concept, but how do we move it forward? Like, how do we start working with farmers? How do we make those changes on the ground? So, context is incredibly important. I think from the region, from Asia and the Pacific, we heard a little bit yesterday about the Asean Climate Resilience Network. That was an interesting example, I think, of where there's a context-specific operating environment for all of the countries in the region, but they saw the value, going back to this idea of the narrative, they saw the value in climate-smart agriculture as an approach to start thinking about how to transform the agricultural system. There was an acknowledgement there that something needed to change. And that group, through using CSA as a common entry point, has come up with guidelines for CSA that have been endorsed by the Ministers of Agriculture in the region. Together they've started working to try and influence or get a better outcome for the region in the UNFCCC discussions related to not only the NDCs, but also now the Coronavirus discussions in agriculture. So, starting from very different positions, very different farming systems in some cases, that thread of CSA has brought them together to try and make a larger change, not only in the national systems, but also the global thinking.
Very good. Anna Maria.
So I think that there are some controversies that are really stopping us from acting. And I think that's important to consider. And just to give you an example, like migration and exit in agriculture. So groups of people believe that this is like a taboo concept, like a word that shouldn't even be pronounced. And then some other people believe that it should be considered a very valuable and possible adaptation strategy. But I think that going beyond beliefs, the fact is that...
You mean people migrating out of agriculture?
Migrating out of agriculture as a mechanism to cope.
Or getting off-farm income, as we heard in the...
So I think that what we are seeing is that the numbers of people that are migrating is increasing. So, regardless if some people believe that it could be considered an adaptation option or not, it's happening. It's already happening. And I think that we should stop discussing if it is an adaptation option or not, and we should go beyond that, and what we really need to do is to increase the knowledge in terms of the linkages between the factors that incentivize migration, or with respect to the key hotspots for migration, or the conditions that need to be in place so that this migration can be done in a planned, in a safe, and in an orderly manner. So those kind of controversies, I don't think that are helping at all.
Messages from different modelers. And in the end, when people look at this, it's almost like garbage in, garbage out. Is the data that's going in of good quality? Where has it been collected? Who has collected it? And can we trust the people that are collecting the data? I think it's time that we invest more in building capacity of our own researchers on the continent. They can be accompanied by experts from outside, but if we have our own researchers giving us the evidence from the continent, I think we will get much further in terms of our policymakers, our development practitioners, and our farmers trusting the data that's coming out.
Very good. Thank you very much, panel members. And thank you to the audience. And we'll... we won't be sending your results back with you to your employers after the conference.